For our next problem, I have a little 3 in here in the exponent. So this is going to be a cube function. So the parent function with transformations would be a times x minus h cubed plus k. So my horizontal shift is my h, my vertical is the k, hk is the vertex, and a is my compressor stretch. My vertical compressor stretch also reflection. So the basic shape is a cubic, which looks like this. My horizontal shift, that's the h, which is opposite of the number that's being added or subtracted to the x inside the function. The vertical shift is 5, which is my k, which is outside the function being added. Put those two numbers together, 1 comma 5, to get my vertex, and then my a is the number out in front. Now this one's a little tricky. It just is a negative, but no one puts just a negative out in front. We have to put a -1 because there is an invisible 1 right there, so we have a -1. Okay, so let's plot our vertex, 1 comma 5. Now let's get our key values. From my vertex, I normally will go right 1 and up 1, or left 1 and down 1 to get my new key values. But in this case, I'm going to go left and right 1 because I always do. But instead of up and down 1, I'm going to go up and down -1, which means it's going to be in the opposite direction. So I'm going to cross this one out, and put -1 there. So going to my vertex at 1 comma 5 on my picture, normally I would go right and up like that. But in this case, because my a is negative, I'm going to go right and instead down. Go back to your vertex. Normally I would go left and down and put a point there, but this time, because my a is -1, I'm going to go left 1 and up 1. Okay, so I'm looking to make sure that you get those 3 key values correct on your picture, but then the last step is to connect them with the correct shape. So my basic shape was like an elongated N shape, but when I reflect it, it's going to come the opposite direction. So it's coming down from like this and then going down there. And that is my cubic function. If you have a hard time graphing those, and sometimes students do, one thing you can do to make it a little bit easier on yourself is you could put your pencil on the red point in the middle, the vertex, and just kind of draw a parabola, a half a parabola up. Then turn your paper upside down, put your pencil on the red again, and then draw another parabola this way. It's not really a parabola, but it might help you to break it up that way, because I'll get all sorts of interesting, like, woo-doo, people trying to make the curve shape correct, and they just kind of get a little too creative, and you don't get any points for creativity in this class. For our next problem, f of x equals the cube root of x plus 3 minus 1. The parent function would be a times the cube root of x minus h plus k. So the horizontal shift is h, vertical is k, hk for the vertex, and a is the vertical stretch and compress. So my horizontal shift in this case would be -3. It's the opposite of whatever's with the x. The vertical shift is -1. Put those two numbers together and you get your vertex. For my vertical stretch and compress, that's the a. Now notice there is no a here in the front. So there is an invisible 1 because it's a multiplier, so we have a 1 there. And then I am going to plot. And we also have to identify our basic shape. So in this case, it's like that S shape. Okay? So my vertex is at -3, -1. Looking at my basic shape, to get from my vertex to the other 2 key points, normally I would go right 1 and up 1 and left 1 and down 1. And in this case, it's no different. Because my a is 1, I'm going to do exactly that. I'm going to go left and right 1 because that never changes, and up and down whatever the A is. And in this case, my A is 1. So I go right 1 and up 1, left 1 and down 1. And then I need to connect my points with the correct basic shape. So if you have a hard time with this one, you might consider turning your paper sideways and just doing like a parabola that way, and then turning it the other way and then doing a parabola that way. It's kind of a cheating way to get the correct shape. Now some students are artists and can just do it all in one, but some students have a hard time just being able to conceptualize what the shape is supposed to look like. I mean, they have it in their head, but they have a hard time putting it on paper. So if you want to break it up into two parts, that will work for you. And our last problem here is an absolute value function, which is a V shape. The parent function with its transformations would be A, absolute value x minus h plus k. So the horizontal shift, h, would be a positive 4. My vertical shift would be a positive 2. Put those two things together, you're going to get your vertex. The a, which is the compress and stretch, is negative 3. So 4, 2 is my vertex. Looking at the basic shape, normally I would go right 1 and up 1 and left 1 and up 1. But in this case, because my a is negative 3, the left and right 1 stay the same. Why? Well, because it's not a horizontal stretch and compress, it's a vertical stretch and compress. So the vertical parts change to whatever the a is. To be clear, I'm going to be going left and right 1 because the left and right 1 never changes. But I'm going to go up and down whatever my a is, which is negative 3. So normally I would go left 1 and up 1, but this time I'm going to go left 1 and down 1, 2, 3. Normally I would go right 1 and up 1 for absolute value, but this time I'm going to go right 1 and down 1, 2, 3 because my a is negative 3. Make sure you connect these with a straight line. This is a V shape, so we have straight line arrows pointing down. And that concludes our lesson on transformations.